Welcome to the eCommerce Badassery Podcast, the place for scrappy entrepreneurs who want to learn actionable steps and strategies to grow the traffic, sales, and profit in your e-commerce business. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster, a 20-year retail veteran and former brick-and-mortar boutique owner who spent 3 years as the only employee of a 7-figure online store. That shit was crazy. I know exactly how it feels to do all the things, and I'm sharing everything I learned the hard way so you don't have to. I may have started this business by accident, but supporting badass bosses like you lights me the fuck up, and I am so stoked to see you grow. Are you ready, babe? Let's roll. Welcome back to the eCommerce Badassery Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster. This week, we're kicking off a series here on the podcast called Badass Basics, where we're breaking down the foundational stuff every e-commerce store needs to have in place, whether you're just getting started or you've been at this for years and possibly skipped a few steps along the way. These are short, actionable episodes designed to help you stop leaving money on the table, and today, we're talking about your homepage. The most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to your homepage is that you want to treat it like a guide. The goal of the page is to make a strong first impression and move people where they need to go. You only have a few seconds before someone decides if they want to stick around or if they're going to bounce. So it's important to be intentional about what you're putting in front of them. And it all starts with the main hero banner at the top of the page. This is prime real estate, and you want to be super strategic with what you feature here. Think of this as the front table in a brick-and-mortar store. The items that go on that table are never an accident. The retailer is always going to put the most important merchandise on that table because it's the first thing the shopper is going to see once they walk in the door. The same goes for your banner. It should feature whatever is most important to your business at any given time. That might be a recent product launch, a special bundle you have, a sale that's happening. You want that banner to reflect that. Between any campaigns, it should always feature your bestseller. That might be a specific product or a specific collection, depending upon your business. But you always want it to be product first, product specific. Don't use some generic feature that tries to encapsulate everything you sell, like a general lifestyle vibe. You want to feature something specific. Once you decide what that is, you also want to be intentional with the content you feature on that banner and the layout of it. The most important thing is to include an actual button that is visible above the fold on desktop. On mobile, once the content stacks, it's okay if the button is below the fold, but on desktop, this is non-negotiable. On most themes, you're going to have options for how tall your banner is, whether you set the actual height of it, is it based on the image, or it may just have some ranges. I always aim to make the banner short enough that the user can clearly see there is more content right below it. At a minimum, you want them to see white space. Ideally, though, you want a peek of the actual content, whether that's the heading of the section or some of the content in the section, visible as well. Be specific with your text content too. Clear over clever, friend. You don't want to confuse your website visitor because you're using flowery language and they don't understand what you're trying to sell to them. While you can have fun with a campaign slogan or something like that, make sure you at least have a subheading or additional text that makes it super clear what they'll find when they click your call to action button. You also want to make sure that you're using the web text and button blocks in your theme. Try to avoid using a pre-designed image that has the text and button designed into it. Not only is this better for SEO, it's also a better experience for the user and the responsiveness of your website, because when that image gets on mobile, it's going to be hard to read those elements. Now, if your theme allows you to set a different desktop and mobile image, you might be able to get away with this, but the truth is, more often than not, it doesn't work out the way merchants want, and it's better to just use the web text. If you really hate the way your theme's banners work and you find yourself always trying to design something in Canva that has all the text and the button embedded in it, it might be worth it to check out some pre-made sections for your site, or if you're on Shopify, you can ask Sidekick to make you a banner that does more of what you want it to do. Yes, it'll be a little bit more work up front, but it will serve you in the long run. Then there's the question of static banner versus slideshow. Honestly, this has been a debate for as long as I've been in e-commerce, and I don't think we'll ever get a definitive answer. I think it's one of those things that just depends on your business, customer, and products. What I will say, though, is if you feel compelled to have a slider because you have important things you want to show your customer, try to cut it off at 3. There's no hard and fast rule here, but I like to consider the paradox of choice. Once you get beyond 3, it's no longer curated, and you could just end up overwhelming your customer. Remember, the hero banner is your front table, and it's reserved for the best of the best at that moment. So if the table is the most visible area of a retail store, what's the second most visible? Well, friend, that is the right wall. Studies show that most customers will walk to the right when entering a retail store, so that first wall is also prime real estate. Depending on how you look at it, the additional slides in your hero could be considered that wall, but it could also be the section right under the hero. While there is no perfect answer, a general rule of thumb you can use is if you have a really wide product assortment, maybe you have a slideshow and consider that your right wall. So if you sell apparel, jewelry, that kind of thing. If you have a small product assortment, I say treat the section under your hero as the right wall. So what goes into this second section under the hero banner? 99% of the time, I recommend you put a product feed of your best sellers. Our goal here is to guide the customer. So if your hero banner is promoting your latest collection, we don't want to hide our best sellers. Those still need to be front and center. And this is not necessarily something I would ever switch out unless you turn over your product quickly. So if you sell trendy clothing that cycles out every couple of weeks, you might want this to be your new arrivals feed instead of your bestsellers feed. For the next section under this product feed, I will typically put some category features. This is where you have to start looking at your product assortment and think about how your customer shops. What is the general entry point for them? Are they deciding between your men's and women's collection? Are they going by a product type, for example, necklaces, earrings, etc.? Pick a handful of your most popular collections and feature them here, max like 3 to 5. If you have a smaller product assortment and you don't have that many collections, maybe you're just going to feature a specific product or a special bundle, something like that. Again, this totally depends on your unique business. Ultimately, don't get too stressed out about it. The truth is the majority of customers only scroll about halfway down the page, meaning most people won't even see what's below those first 2 sections. This is also why your navigation is super important, but we're going to talk about that in another episode. After you've optimized your product and category features, then it's time to include some supporting content. The first section I would include is a review or social proof section. Ideally, you want to use a widget from your review platform. Check the show notes for my favorite, versus typing in a handful of testimonials into a section of your theme. It just looks more legit and believable when you're showing a review widget. If you don't have a review platform and your only option is to type them directly in your theme, well, that's better than nothing. So yes, go ahead and do it. This is also a great place if you have a lot of content creators that talk about you on social media. You could put their videos in here. Doesn't really matter the content type. You just want it to look as real, believable, and trustworthy as possible. And you just want it to serve as social proof that other people are buying and loving what you sell. Under your reviews is where you can add a mini About You section that links to your full About page. Be intentional about what you write here. Yes, it's about you, but it's also about them. You want to position this content to be about how you are there to help them. So instead of saying, I do this because I love it, you can say, I do this because I want to bring you XYZ. The other sections you include on your homepage are going to depend a bit on your business. For example, if you have a lot of blog posts, you might want to feature them at the bottom before your footer. If you're community driven, then you'll want to feature those details. This could also be a good place to show off your product recommendations quiz, product guides, tutorials, wholesale details, whatever additional information you want to make sure gets featured. Again, not many people are going to make it down this far, but it's also a good way to show search engines what your store is all about. So think about that when you're deciding. Last but certainly not least is an email sign up. Even if you're using a pop-up form, you still want a static embedded form that people can sign up through. Most themes are going to have this in the footer. If yours doesn't, or you need that footer space for something else, then you should add a full width sign up right above your footer. You'll want this to actually be a new section, and I'm talking in Shopify terms here, but still be part of your footer so it shows up on every page, but you want it to be above the area where your footer links, social media links, etc. are. I hope that's making sense. Let's pretend your footer is a color, and then you add a new section on top of that, but it's still in the overall footer section. Yeah? Okay. Now, before you go down a rabbit hole of trying to build the perfect homepage, I want to give you a little benchmark to consider as you're thinking through this. You want roughly 50% of your website traffic to show shopping activity. That means navigating to collections and products. And both Shopify and Google Analytics will surface this percentage in their shopping journey report. If you're at or above this and you love your homepage, you can ignore most of what I said and move on. If you're below that, or you just want to give yourself a little optimization boost, it shouldn't take you long to make these upgrades. But remember, benchmarks are just benchmarks. They're not hard and fast rules. There are other variables that can contribute to lower shopping activity rates, like if you get a lot of blog traffic. If that's you, look at your numbers when you exclude blog pages as the first page someone lands on, and I bet your numbers are better than you think. You might also see a lower rate if you have a strong brick-and-mortar presence with people coming to your site just to get information about your store. Regardless, my goal for you is to be better than you were yesterday, not to aim for some benchmark that doesn't take into consideration any of the nuances in your business. So, what are your next steps? First, check your shopping activity metric just so you know what you're working with. Then scroll through your homepage and see if it matches my recommendations. Hero banner featuring the most important items right now, call to action above the fold. Best-selling product feed, category features, social proof, about you, and email sign up. Make any necessary adjustments and then check back in 90 days and see if there has been an improvement. But be really careful not to get sucked into an optimization rabbit hole. Generally, the better you are doing, the harder it is to see measurable improvements. Someone who has a 30% shopping activity is more likely to see a significant bump than someone who is already getting 50 to 60%. And your homepage is not the only factor for this metric. Your navigation menu weighs heavily here too. That's what we're going to talk about next week. How to organize your menu and collection so people can actually find what they're looking for. Your homepage is the highlight reel, but your navigation is where the real shopping experience lives. All right, so if this was helpful and you haven't already, I'd be super stoked if you'd leave a positive review for the podcast wherever you're listening to this right now. Bonus if it's actually on Apple Podcasts, since that is the most used platform. It really helps more people find the show and know that it is worth listening to. Thank you in advance. I appreciate it more than you know. You can get the full show notes of this episode at ecommercebadassery.com/369. I always leave additional resources and such on that page, so I definitely recommend you check it out. And on that note, I'm out. Have a kick-ass rest of your week, and I'll see you on the flip side, friend. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you want to learn more about growing your e-commerce business, get started with my free resource library at ecommercebadassery.com/free stuff and get an invite to the Lounge, my e-commerce marketing membership. When you're ready for one-on-one support, apply to work with me at ecommercebadassery.com/apply. Before you go, would you do me a quick favor? Leave a rating and review and tap that follow button. This pushes me up the chart so I can support more scrappy e-commerce entrepreneurs just like you. I'm on a mission to reach as many as I can, and I could really use your help. Thanks so much in advance. Until next time, e-commerce friend, stay badass.